And then let's not forget that when we talk about relevant experience, who is it that CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC have turned to literally hundreds of times to try to make sense of what's going on in the world for their listeners? Well, it's been Jeff Beatty. They haven't once turned to any of the other three candidates for that kind of national security expertise to talk to the American people. So don't take my word for it, and when you talk to people about this campaign, point that out to them. They don't need to take your word for it. You know, Allison, that when they go out, yeah, it's true, they'll book anybody once or twice. But to bring them back 300 times, the person has to be competent in what they're talking about. So relevant experience. I want to talk to you. I might almost... Are you on this, Ken? Can you help me get rid of some of this feedback? Or am I standing in front of the... Well, then I might as well sing. Can't dance, so I'm going to have to sing. Just turn me way down. Or... Maybe I'm going to have to back up.
Maybe we can hear you without it.
How about that? Is that better? Can you hear me without it? Or is it... Pardon me? If you can't hear me, raise your hand. Okay, good. Caught you. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. You had to hear that. I want to talk to you about some of the... Those are the relevant experiences that are going to be important. Remember, there's 4 candidates in this race. Who's the one with the most relevant experience? That's what we want to get people talking about right now to take us through the November election. I want to talk to you about the economy. That's the #1 issue right now. Think about it, folks. A year ago, what was the #1 issue? It was Iraq. It was the United States is failing in Iraq. Last spring and last summer, the #1 issue was Iraq. And yet, what was the Jeff Beatty campaign doing last summer in New Bedford, in Fall River? We were meeting with economic leaders. We were meeting with people about the economy. Why? Because we could see that the economy was going to be the big issue 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year down the road. This campaign is looking ahead. It doesn't look back. It looks ahead. We're not there as a senator to commiserate with people, wring our hands. We're there to prevent hand wringing. I would much rather prevent than react. So I want you to know that on the economy, we made a pledge to increase jobs in the South Coast region, and we're going to get those jobs increased. We've been meeting with people about education, because the key to bringing businesses in here is they've got to have a good educated workforce. We've met with corrections officials. We've met with people who have had successful business models here. How do we emulate that? How do we repeat that? You know, I'm kind of going to be the Milton Berle of the economy. You know, if it's worked for somebody else, let's use it and import those workable models. And John, I don't remember the dates of some of these meetings, but it was certainly over the summer, I think, when we were doing these meetings, late summer at the latest. But this is where we are on the economy. Now, I'll tell you something else on the economy. We're going to do something about this regressive, punitive situation we find ourselves in, largely because of people like John Kerry, on gas prices. Look at what gas prices are doing to people that have to commute to work. Look at what the rising cost of gasoline is doing to somebody who's on a fixed income and still has to get around to go to doctor's appointments, etc. Right now, there's over 40 cents per gallon of tax on every gallon of gas you put in your tank. That's too much. At least temporarily, we have got to suspend part or all of the tax on gas. 18% of that, 18 cents of that, is federal. 22 cents of that is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Why are we in the mess we're in on that? Because the supply is not as big as it ought to be. Now, we can sit here all day long and blame people in Venezuela or the Middle East about the supply of oil. But you know what? We have got to do first those things that are in our own control to do. So what does that mean? That means that we have to drill in Anwar to get more oil. John Kerry opposed that. That means we need to increase offshore drilling to get more oil, to increase the supply. John Kerry opposed that. In fact, we need to build 2 more refineries, not only to reduce the cost by increasing the supply, but strategically for us as a country, we can't afford to have 1 refinery go down right now. We need 2 more refineries. We have to make that investment. These are all things that John Kerry has opposed. And what has happened? Supply is tight, demand has gone up, supply has remained relatively flat, and therefore prices go up. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to look at that and say we've got to get ahead of that. So we've got to do all those things. We've got to go back and make that up. That's the long term. In the short term, we have got to give the people who are getting hurt the most by this some relief by temporarily suspending half or all of the tax on gasoline. That's one of the things that we're going to be putting out this coming week. We talked about it a little bit on the air this week on Ken's show. The economy, let me transition into wages. People in southeastern Massachusetts have had their wages suppressed by what? What has been the single biggest thing that has suppressed wages here?
Illegal immigration.
Illegal immigration. Now, I'm as compassionate as the next guy, but our first duty is to those law-abiding residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's who we have to be compassionate to. I can't tell you how many people come up to me and talk about their business, a small business, whether it's been in construction or whether it's been in painting, who said, I go out and bid a job to do a small job, finish off a basement at $4,000, and somebody else comes in and bids it at $2,500 because they're using illegal labor. Guess who gets the job? The person bidding $2,500. And what kind of options does that give that small business person? He can either what? Also hire illegal labor, or he can go out of business. And yet he's got a responsibility, or she's got a responsibility to put food on their table. We cannot allow the people that John Kerry is saying, come on in. We cannot allow this to go on because your neighbors, your friends, are hurting, and they're hurting significantly due to illegal immigration. So we will have a plan to deal with illegal immigration. We're sympathetic to the small business person who has to feed his family. We're going to pick a date certain in the future, and then we're going to implement our plans for illegal immigration. And what's the plan going to be? It's not going to be some smoke-filled room deal that John Kerry and Ted Kennedy, and I hate to say it, but a Republican who will remain unnamed, decided upon and tried to shove down our throats last summer. And God bless all of you who made phone calls and said no to illegal immigration. We stopped our campaign for a week or so to make phone calls to every office in the Senate that we could and tell them to stop this amnesty for illegal immigration. Because we're going to have a commission. We're going to have to come out like they did in the 90s, and they had this great commission like we did after 9/11. Hey, Celeste, how are you? Good to see you. And we're going to have an opportunity to say, we want an immigration policy that's based upon America's needs, not based upon Mexico's needs or El Salvador's needs or Costa Rica's needs or anybody else's needs. We need an immigration policy based upon America's needs. Now, I can tell you that when I was in government service, I got trained how to issue visas. I know how to do that. It's not that hard. You can teach a monkey to do it if you have a big enough bunch of bananas. So, I'm confident that we can get more people issuing visas for those people that we need to immigrate to this country. We do not need to encourage illegal immigration, because when they come here illegally, they pay $10,000 worth of taxes a year on average in a family, but they use $30,000 a year worth of benefits. And who do you suppose is paying that $20,000 difference? You are. We can't afford that. So our policy is going to be based upon what are America's needs. And I'll tell you right now, one of the big needs that we have